What's up, mobile gamers? It's Johnzer Gigs back with another Black Clover Mobile video. This one's going to be pretty chill. We're just going to put up this screenshot of Black Clover Phantom Knights, which is the last Black Clover game that we had. And we're going to kind of talk about why I'm so excited for Black Clover Mobile. Now, we don't really have a ton of Black Clover games. There's not even very much merch at all. And the Black Clover games that we have pretty much get canceled about a year into it. So it seems like Black Clover Mobile is going to be more of a long-standing game than Black Clover Phantom Knights. And since that was the last game we had, I'm going to kind of compare them and kind of show you guys why Black Clover Mobile is going to be way better and why I'm so excited for it. So the first thing that we're going to talk about here, where you guys have this background, is Phantom Knights. Obviously, they have a lot of characters, but they kind of came about and all the characters were pretty similar in terms of like having different versions of those characters. And I would say that the characters who maybe weren't as well known in the world, so like Seke or something like that, Seke wouldn't be very good. So like the main characters got the main character treatment and they were a lot better in the game. I think Black Clover Mobile's going to be a little bit more balanced, and at least like right out the gate with the beta, I didn't have access to it, but I saw it. Black Clover Mobile's beta, you had knights that were maybe not the main characters who felt really strong, at least from what I've seen from the people that I've seen play it. And that's not really something you had with Phantom Knights. It was, you had like one or two good characters and they were all main characters, and it was because they had like certain abilities or powers. And I think that Black Clover Mobile is going to be more balanced in terms of what heroes you can use. I think all heroes will be decently usable, and I think the meta, so to speak, won't be as crazy. So that's the first reason. And then the second reason has to do with the characters as well, and that's the fact you can actually see them. Now, Phantom Knights was really fun, and it was turn-based as well. But one of the things they had that was maybe a problem, what I actually enjoyed at the time, was that the characters were way smaller, so you could actually see the battlefield a little bit more. It wasn't like this like third person view. It was like a fourth person view where you're over top of them watching. And that was because of the formation. So we'll talk about the formations after this, because that's the third thing that we're going to talk about. But you could not see the skins as much as you can in Black Clover Mobile. So Black Clover Mobile, you have that third person view, and the icons for the characters are way bigger. And that means that you can see them when they're just standing there, when they're throwing basic attacks, all that. In Phantom Knights, you could only see the skins that you have or the different outfits when they cast their ultimate, right? And you can also skip over that with like the autoplay feature, but essentially what that means is you can't really see your characters as much. Now, I had probably my favorite character was a wedding dress Mimosa, and I basically never saw her skin where she had on a white wedding dress, because you would only see it during the ultimate, and the character models were pretty small. So that's another thing that Black Clover Mobile has going for it, is you'll be able to see all these different outfits and different versions of these characters way better. So it gives that incentive for people to get characters that maybe, don't have the same outfit as the general Magic Knight. Like, I know, like, there's one where Asta has like a school outfit. You wouldn't even be able to see that in Phantom Knights. Not to mention, they probably wouldn't even have too many of those because their stats would never be any good. Like Black Asta, for instance, was a really good unit. But if you go and you look at like a Valentine's Day Asta, for instance, he would not have good stats, and it wasn't really worth getting him, because not only would you not be able to see all the unique stuff that they did to the model unless you use the ultimate, you wouldn't be able to use him competitively against other players or even against the CPU half the time. And so those two first reasons kind of tie together, because if you have characters that have unique costumes or unique designs, you want those players to not only be able to use them, but to be able to see those designs. And so it kind of made it where they would put a lot of work in and maybe it wouldn't really pan out in the way that they wanted. And I think that Black Clover Mobile has fixed that issue because they have a similar style of game where it's turn-based, but you can see the models and all the characters are going to feel a lot more unique. And I think that those costumes are actually going to be like add-ons to the character. Don't quote me on that, I'm not sure, but that seems like that's how it's going to go. And the roster is going to be a lot bigger. So Phantom Knights, if you guys didn't know, they kind of started out pretty basic, and they wouldn't really have too many new ideas, and it wouldn't really be worth getting somebody with a new costume because they wouldn't be very good. And what you really wanted was the units like Black Asta, who were very basic in terms of design. You know, they just pull it from the manga and the anime and stuff like that, and then they put it into the game and it's a good character. So I think Black Clover Mobile is going to do a better job of doing that. And I think it's going to make it a lot more fun, and it's going to make your teams a lot more unique. And that's where you come to the formations. Now, in Phantom Knights, for those of you guys that haven't played it, it was really fun. I'm not bagging on the game at all. I love the game. I think Black Clover Mobile is just like a better version of it. It's going to be way better. But in Phantom Knights, you had formations, right? And that would give you bonuses. So it would organize your knights in a way that was like putting them on the battlefield in a certain order and a certain orientation and that kind of thing. And that's one of the ways you would get advantage over some of the like the enemies that would spawn or the bosses that would spawn. And so you'd have to run certain formations with certain heroes. But the problem was that those formations were locked behind certain heroes. So let's say, for instance, my Mimosa had a formation. If she had a really good formation that everybody's going to want, that's because that's competitive, then you have to get Mimosa. Even if you don't want the character, you need the formation to be competitive. And so it just added another layer of stuff to get, and you had to have duplicates in order to level up your heroes. So then you're getting a bunch of duplicates for a hero you don't even want just because they have a formation that you want to get. And that causes a lot of confusion in the price ranges of certain things and what you're buying and what is considered like meta and competitive. And in Black Clover Mobile, not only do you not have the dupes, it seems like, but you don't have that formation. It's just, 4 Magic Knights in a line and you attack. You know what I mean? And the formations, while you could have 5 people, which is nice, it made it where it would be very stale. Every battle would be exactly the same. And even if it wasn't, because it was on such a small screen and the characters were so small, you just hit the auto battle and the fast forward button and they battle, and then it's like that's over. And that was the grinding. And it was very, very boring for a lot of people. And the formations kind of like hindered that fun aspect of things, because sure, you could change the formations, but you had to have a certain formation for a lot of your heroes, because if you have a formation that maybe puts Mimosa in the front, then you're not going to do very good. So certain formations would be desirable and certain heroes would be desirable, and it made the meta very cookie cutter, and it made it hard to play certain heroes. So all 3 of those reasons made it very difficult to actually be creative with your team and be competitive in the meta. And it kind of gave the player less freedom for what they wanted out of their Magic Knight squad. And there was also a lot of like gear that you could put on your Magic Knight. Now, I'm not really sure about gear in this game, right? Black Clover Mobile's gear, I'm not really sure how it works. I would assume it's going to be pretty intuitive and maybe it's not going to be the main focus. But in Phantom Knights, you had like gear slots, and that gear was so beneficial that you had to, it's the same thing with formations. You had to get certain gear, which means you had to buy certain heroes that gave you certain gear in order to use that gear for your team. And so that just adds another layer on top of another layer on top of another layer that you would have to pay for certain heroes, for certain magic knights that you want on the certain banners in order to actually get that cool gear. And that's another thing that I kind of wanted to leave at the back end of things. That's probably my last kind of thing to pick out, is that the gear is going to be very different. And I think it's not going to be as influential and hardcore as Phantom Knights was. I think Phantom Knights made the mistake of doing some really cool, really tough gear, and that caused a lot of problems in their game. Those are kind of my thoughts on things. Let me know down in the comments what you guys are thinking. If you played Phantom Knights, is Black Clover Mobile looking like it's better than Phantom Knights? At least that's my opinion. I think it is. I think that all of the problems with Phantom Knights are being addressed in Black Clover Mobile. They've got a similar turn-based RPG with knights that are strong in certain areas. They have certain attributes, but they're getting rid of all the problems that Phantom Knights had that hindered creativity and hindered some of the fun that came with the game. Obviously, the gear thing, I don't really know much about that. So feel free in the comments if you know anything about the gear to be like, oh, well, the gear system in Black Clover Mobile's like this, blah, blah, blah. That's definitely going to be helpful because that's the reason I left it at the last for the reasons, is because I wasn't really sure on it. So I'm still going to include it because I think it's like, obviously this game was already out. It only lasted a year. We wait a couple years or so and we have the new Black Clover Mobile. So there's no way that that's going to be a worse gear system, but it looks like you're going to have a lot more gear and a lot more gear slots. And it's going to be more interactive because in Phantom Knights, you basically put on a piece of gear and that was it. And there was only like you get two pieces of gear for your knight. One was offense, one was defense. I'm not sure if I'm remembering that right for Phantom Knights. It's been quite a while, but that's one of the reasons that I think Black Clover Mobile is going to be a lot better. So those are my top 4 reasons for you guys. Let me know down in the comments what your reasonings are if you've played both the games, or just if you're going to play Black Clover Mobile in general. What's bringing you to the game? Like what are you seeing in Black Clover Mobile's videos by YouTubers or trailers, or maybe if you played the beta, what is it that's bringing you to this game besides being a fan of Black Clover? So that's what I'm kind of saying. Those are just my opinions. Obviously, you guys can feel free to disagree down in the comments and stuff like that. Definitely want to get the community talking about this kind of stuff, and that's where my channel's headed, is we're going to talk in depth about the game. We're not just going to be like, oh, montage with me doing a bunch of stuff where I wipe enemies out really quick. So let me know down in the comments what you think. Feel free to drop a sub. More Black Clover content is coming your way.